Apart from simplifying fractions by addition and subtraction, we can simplify fractions by multiplication and division. Hello everyone, this is our junior certificate mathematics lesson. My name is Raiwani Khare. With me is Elena Boaho, who will be helping me in today's discussion. Before we can develop this topic further, let us have a look at the lesson objectives. The lesson objectives say multiplying and division of fractions. So we are going to be multiplying and dividing fractions. This is what is going to guide us in our lesson. Let us have a look at what fractions are. It says when multiplying fractions, multiply the numerator and the denominator. That is, before you can start multiplying the fractions, what you need to do is to multiply the numerators and the denominators. And then this goes on and say, when you divide, this is supposed to be dividing. When dividing fractions, invert whatever is after the division sign and change the operation from division to multiplication. So after immediately invert, you will change the division sign from division to multiplication. Then that's when you can carry out your operations. Let me invite Boaho, who is here with me, to chip in and help in this discussion.
Good day, everyone. I am Boaho Asil. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity. Can you please show us how fractions are multiplied? Include multiplication of a fraction by whole number.
Thank you, Boaho. You are saying, how do you exactly multiply fractions? I've got an example here which will elaborate more on multiplication of fractions. Let us have a look at it and then discuss it. Before we can multiply that, we need to consider the general form d over a times b over c. Remember, it's multiplying. So this is a fraction and then this is also a fraction. The rule says when you multiply fractions, what you simply need to do is to multiply the numerators. So this is the numerator and then this is the numerator as well. So this will be d times b and then this will be bd. And then you multiply the denominators, AC. So this is the rule that you have to follow. You simply multiply the numerators and denominators as we have done. And then let us have a look at the specific examples where we are going to apply this rule. Illustrative examples. We've got 1 over 2, which is a half, and then multiplied by, it's 1 over 2 times 3/8. And then it says you have to multiply. Remember, it says when you multiply fractions, you multiply the numerators. Then after multiplying the numerators, you also multiply the denominators. So this will be 1 times 3 is 3, divided by 2 times 8 is 16. So we've got 3 divided by 16. This is how you multiply fractions. This was a simple fractions where you were to multiply the 2. Let us have a look at another example which I believe will be different from this. Another example is this. It's 3/5 times 15 over 21. Before you can start multiplying, we know that the rule says multiply the numerators and then multiply the denominators. But before you can start multiplying, check if at all you got some common factors which can cancel the numerator and denominator. But remember that you can only cancel the numerator and denominator. So this is 3/5 times 15 over 21. And then how will we simplify this? 3 over 5 times 15 divided by 21. When we look into this, we can see that there's a 5 here and then a 15. Remember, you can only cancel the numerator and denominator. So there's a 5, there's a 15. 5 into 5 is ones, and then 5 into 15 is 3. Then check. Is there any other factors that we can use to simplify this? We've got a 3 and a 21. So 3 into 3 is 1. 3 into 21 is 7. Now that's when we can multiply. We've got 1, which is this one, times 3 divided by 1 times 7. And then this gives you 1 times 3 is 3 divided by 7. So the answer is 3/7. This is how you multiply the fraction 3/5 times 15 over 21. You simply need to make sure that you look for the factor which can go into 15 and 5. In this case it was 5. 5 into 5 once, 5 into 15, 3. And then from there we look for a factor which can go into 3 and 21. That factor is 3. Then 3 into 3 once, 3 into 21 is 7. And remember that you can only cancel the numerator and the numerator. Let us have a look at another example. Another example is this. 3/5 times 30. So it's a fraction and a whole number. This is a whole number and then this one is a fraction. So you are multiplying a fraction and a whole number. So how do you multiply a fraction and a whole number? This will be 3/5 times 30. And then 5 into 5 is ones. 5 into 30 is 6. Now, what do you have? This is 3 times 6 divided by 1 times 1. And then this will be 3 times 6 is 18 divided by 1. And then 18 divided by 1 is 18. And this is how you multiply a fraction and a whole number. You simply need to look at a factor which can go into the denominator and then that number. In this case, we said 5 into 5 is 1, 5 into 30 is 6. Then from there you multiply 3 and 6, which happen to be 18 divided by 1. I want to believe the examples that I've given you have helped answer the question that you asked, where you said I'm to give you examples involving multiplication of fractions and multiplication of a fraction and a whole number. Remember, we are still multiplying and dividing fractions. Before we went for a short break, we multiplied fractions. Let me give Boaho this opportunity again to ask a question with regard to today's topic.
Thank you, sir. But can you go further and work out questions involving division of fractions?
Thank you, Boaho. You are saying since we have multiplied fractions, but then how do we divide fractions? Before I can give you an example on dividing fractions, we need to look at a general rule of dividing fractions. Let us have a look at it. The rule is, when you are dividing the fraction d divided by a, rather d over a divided by b over c, how do you do this? What we'll do is, we will say this is d divided by a, then there is a rule says when you are dividing fractions, you change the division sign into multiplication and then invert whatever comes after the division sign. So in this case, this is our division sign. So we'll change this division sign to multiplication. Then after changing the division sign to multiplication, you invert whatever comes after division sign there. So this will be c divided by b. Not by d, but by b. It's c divided by b, because we invert the fraction b over c. And this is how we do it. It's now multiplication, which is similar to what we did before. So this will be d times c is dc, or cd, divided by a times b is ab. So this is the general rule. And then you said I should show you how we divide fractions. Let us look at specific examples on how we are going to apply this rule. This is the example. 5/7 divided by 15 over 28. How do we work this one out? It's 5/7 divided by 15 divided by 28. Right. Now, we are dividing. The principle says when you are dividing, you change the division sign into multiplication, and then you invert whatever comes after division sign. So this will be 5 divided by 7 times. We now change the division sign to multiplication. So it will be times. And then invert this part. This is 15 over 28. And then when we invert this 15 over 28, it will be 28 divided by 15. This is how we have to work it out. And then upon simplifying, we will get 5 here, it's ones, 5 into 15, 3. And then you check again, do you still have any other factor which can cancel the numerator and denominator? You got a 7 here. 7 into 7 is ones, 7 into 28 is 4. And then this will be 1 times 4 divided by 1 times 3. This will be 1 times 4, it's 4 divided by 3. And then what do we have? It's 4 divided by 3. This will be 3 into 4, it's ones, remainder 1 over 3. So the answer is 1 and 1/3. This is another type of fraction which we call the mixed number. And we cannot leave our fraction as an improper one where it's a 4 over 3. It has to be simplified to 1 and 1/3. This is how we divide fractions. And then what about when you are to divide a fraction by a whole number? This is a fraction 8/9 divided by 4. 4 is a whole number, and then this one 8/9 it's a fraction. So how do we divide a fraction and a whole number? Let us have a look at what we can do. It's 8/9 divided by 4. This will be 8/9 divided by 4 over 1. Remember, the whole number 4 is the same as 4 over 1. When we are to write this 4 as a whole number, rather as a fraction, it will be 4 over 1. And then this is what we have. We now simplify this. This will be 8 divided by 9 times 4, not times 4, but times 1 over 4, because we are to change division sign to multiplication and then invert whatever comes after division sign. So this will be times 1 over 4. This simplifies to, we look for the LCM which can cancel the numerator and the denominator. In this case, rather the highest common factor which can cancel the numerator and denominator. We got a 4 here. 4 into 4 once, 4 into 8 is 2. And then we check, do we still have a situation where we can cancel the numerator and denominator? There's a 1 and a 9. In this case, there's nothing. So this will be 2 times 1 divided by 9 times 1. 2 times 1, this is 2 divided by 9 times 1 is 9. The answer is 2/9. This is how you multiply, rather this is how you divide a fraction by a whole number. And then remember, we have talked about addition and division. We can always combine the two. We can have a situation where you are to divide a fraction or rather multiply them depending on the given example. Let us have a look at this example. 2/3 plus 1/3 times 1/6 plus 2 times 5, not 2, but times 5/6 times 5/6 5/6. Of course, here we are saying 2/3 plus 1/3, then times. Here the fractions are supposed to be added, add this, and then there is a multiplication involved. That is what we call the BODMAS rule. The BODMAS rule says brackets off. Then after removing the brackets, that's when you can multiply. So looking at this, it simply says we are to simplify what is inside this bracket. 2/3 plus 1/3. Simplify it. Then after simplifying, look at another bracket, 1/6 plus 5/6. Simplify it. Then that's when you can multiply later. So 2/3 plus 1/3. This will be 3/3. Remember, when denominators are the same, we simply keep the denominator and then add the numerators. So 2 plus 3 is simply 3 divided by 3 times. And then simplify what is inside this bracket. 1/6 plus 5/6. So this will be, what we simply need to do, we can see that this is a common denominator, 6/6. So we keep the 6. And then 1 plus 5 is 6 divided by 6. So we are multiplying 3/3 times 3/3 times 6/6. 3/3 is 1 times 6/6 is also 1. So it's 1 times 1. And then what is 1 times 1? It's a 1. So this is how you multiply situations which involves brackets. You simply need to make sure that you remove the brackets first. And always make sure that you apply the BODMAS rule. Now, let me allow you to ask another question so that we can go on with our discussion.
When you started this topic, you mentioned a type of fraction called mixed numbers. Can you show how they are multiplied or divided?
We can have a situation where the example is 3/3 divided by 7.5. This is a mixed number. 3 1/3 is a mixed number. 7.5 also, it's a mixed number. So how do we divide this? First, we'll have to change the mixed numbers into improper fractions. And then how do we change mixed numbers into improper fraction? This is how we do it. We will say 3 over, it's not 3 over, it's 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10 divided by 3. Then divided by 2 times 7 is 14 plus 1 is 15 divided by 2. So we have managed to change the mixed number 3 1/3 into an improper fraction. And then we found that when you change this into an improper fraction, it will be 10/3 divided by 7.5. Change 7.5 into an improper fraction. When you change 7.5 into an improper fraction, you get 15/2. So these are the fractions that we have. And then you can now divide. This will be 10 divided by 3. Then the rule says, when you divide, you change the division sign into multiplication and then invert whatever comes after division sign. So this will be times. Now we got 15/2. We have to invert this 15/2. Then how do we invert 15/2? It will be 2/15. This is what we have. It's 10/3 times 2/15. And then check, is there a factor which can go in either of your numerator and denominator? 10 and 15. Do you have a factor which can go into 10 and 15? Check. Do you have a factor which can go into 2 and 3? Now, upon checking, we realize that there is a factor which can go into 10 and 15. And that factor is 5. Then we'll say 5 into 10 is 2. And then 5 into 15 is 3. So this will be 2 times 2 divided by 3 times 3. 3 times 3. This will be 2 times 2 is 4 divided by 3 times 3 is 9. So the answer is 4/9. This is how you divide a mixed number. You change the mixed number into an improper fraction. Then after changing it into an improper fraction, you now change the division sign into multiplication and then invert whatever comes after the division sign. Let us have a look at another example. Another example is this. It says a mechanic can do a car service in 1 1/3 hours. 1 week, he has to service 15 cars. How long will it take him to service these 15 cars? This is a situation that we are having. It says he can do a car service in 1 1/3 hours. That is to service one car. He takes 1 1/3 hours. But then he has to service 15 cars. So how long is it going to take to service these 15 cars? Let us work it out. It's 1 1/3 hours times the number of cars. Now how many cars do we have? It's 15. So we are multiplying a fraction, which in this case is in the form of a mixed number, by a whole number. Now you have to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. Now how do we change this mixed number into an improper fraction? 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4 divided by 3. This will be equal to 4 divided by 3 times 15. Times 15. We have to multiply by 15 because we know that if this says he can only service a car in 1 1/3 hours. What about 15 cars? We have to multiply the time by the number of cars. And this is what we did. So this will be, it will be 4 divided by 3 times 15. Remember, this 15 is the same as 15 over 1. Now, you check factor which can go into 3 and 15, and then a factor which can go into 4 and 1. Now, 3 into 3 is 1s, 3 into 15 is 5. So this will be 4 times 5 is 20 divided by 1 times 1, which is 1. And then 20 divided by 1 is 20. And then the question says, how long will it take him? This simply means to service the 15 cars, he's going to take 20 hours. This is the time he will take to service the 15 cars. This is how we multiply a mixed number and a whole number. Now, before we end today's lesson, let us have a look, or rather let us rep what we did on today's lesson. The lesson objective said we are to multiply and divide fractions, which I want to believe we did. Remember, when multiplying fractions, what we simply need to do is to make sure that you multiply the numerator and denominator. And then when we divide fractions, you change whatever comes after division sign. That is, you change division sign into multiplication. Then after changing division sign into multiplication, you change whatever, rather you invert whatever comes after division sign. Then that's when you can simplify your fractions. This is how we multiply and simplify fractions. This is all I had for you. From me, enjoy and goodbye.